Well, this interview was with the only Hispanic that ever received the highest award granted to folk artists, and an award that's called the Best Lomax Hawes Award. None other than Carmencristina Moreno. How are you, Carmen?
Fine, thank you for
I'm so
inviting
happy
me.
that you came. Well, I wanted to start with your latest CD. Maybe we can show it to the camera here, so that yes. Tell me a little bit about it. It's called Songs of the Mexican Revolution that my father taught me.
Yes.
Dime algo.
Yeah. Bueno, pues I did this CD in memory of my father, because my father was a writer of Mexican country music, and he was born in 1899, and he was forcefully conscripted into the Constitutionalist Army under Venustiano Carranza.
Right.
And what happened is that because his father was a full-blooded Yaqui, but his mother was the daughter of French immigrants. She was blue-eyed and fair, hazelnut hair. Well, he didn't look a lot like his mother. He looked more like his father.
Well.
And so, no, there's nothing. It was beautiful. And so, but they put him in la División de los Yaqui, the fighting division of the Yaqui Indians, who were originally from Sonora, where his father was from. And so he fought through many battles and was wounded, left for dead on the battlefield. And out of that came several songs, two that I included in this CD.
Now he wrote these songs, or
he
some
wrote
of them
two.
he wrote.
He wrote two of these songs. There are 11 songs in this CD, and I just couldn't put all the songs that he wrote about the Mexican Revolution. I had to put some to give. In my mind, I put them in chronological order as the Mexican Revolution unfolded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of songs about the events and the battles, and so I think two of my father's songs fit. And
what are the titles of his two songs?
The title of his two songs is Los Revolucionarios and De los Dorados de Villa. And this one, the De los Dorados de Villa, Pancho Villa had the golden men, that they call them, Los Dorados.
Mm-hmm.
And one time when we were singing, my mother and father, el dueto de los Moreno, were singing over in El Jardín Canales, which was in the golden west side of Fresno, remember?
I
Wolfman
remember
Jack. And that time they were having a exhibit. They were exhibiting Pancho Villa's bullet-riddled car. And anyhow, while my mom and dad were singing there, this man, they took a break, and this man came up to the stage and he motioned for my father. My father went down. Turns out that this man had been one of the Dorados de Villa.
My goodness.
And he had deserted when their ammunition had run out. And it all is a chain. It all snowballed. And my father sat and talked with that man for a long time. And out of that experiences and from his own experiences, he wrote De los Dorados de Villa about escaping.
He wrote many other songs.
Oh, my dad wrote a beautiful ranchera music. For instance, ¿cómo se llama? Vicente Fernández, a couple of years ago, recorded one of his corridos, which was el corrido de Nacho Bernal. You know el corrido, caramba, yo soy tu rey, mi caballo es el segundo.
Yes. You still sound good.
Yeah, thank you. And then he wrote the one that has been the most, his steady hit, which is Sabe Dios, or as it was known, Que Sacrificio. It was the song that goes, Que sacrificio, olvidarte si te quiero, como se quiere a un amor que es verdadero, pero tú en cambio mi querer no emparejaste, pues me olvidaste, sabe Dios, si jamás te voy. Lucha Reyes is the one that recorded it first. The famous Lucha Reyes. I brought a bunch of stuff here to show you.
Good.
They were on tour with her for 2 years. I think that camera with the red light is on.
Oh,
That's the one.
Okay, now they've turned it on.
Okay. Lucha Reyes was the originator of that style of music. Canción Bravía, it's
Yes,
called.
yes.
Well, because the singers before would sing a la operetta. For instance, Tiene los ojos tan cercos, la morena de mis amores. La, 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 la. You know, they wanted to do very European light opera, zarzuela,
Yes,
as
yes.
it's called. So Balucha Reyes came back, and after she'd gone to Europe to tour, she lost her voice and came back, and she was cured. She regained her voice, but it was a different thing, and by that time, she had really picked up a habit.
Oh.
And she was the first woman to get in front of a mariachi and sing, you know. And so she toured with my parents. And by the way, my mother and father were the ones who gave her that song that Lalo Guerrero wrote, because Lucha asked.
Which one? Canción Mexicana?
Canción Mexicana. She asked my dad for songs because she was going back to Mexico to record. And then after my dad gave her a lot of songs before that she liked, she took about 2 or 3. And then my dad said, "Oh, by the way, here's a song that a friend of mine wrote." Lalo Guerrero had given songs to my mom and dad to record. But my dad showed it to Lucha, and Lucha says, "Oh, okay." So she took it back to RCA Victor, to the A&R guy, and recorded it. But Lucha forgot who she said she said that my dad had written it. There was a little bit of a mix-up, something that Lalo always held against my dad.
Well,
you know.
It was very popular. The song was very popular.
Oh, it was her theme song. Yeah. But later he went back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, when you mentioned Lucha Reyes and your parents were some of the first cancioneros, singers. I mean, there were many singers before, but there were some, in California at least, they were 2 of the first to actually record commercially. But can you tell me a little bit how they got, how they got started? You know a lot about how they, because I want to talk a bit about them, and then we'll switch to you.
No, not me. They're the thicker. They're the more.
How did they get started?
Well, from what I can remember that my parents told me, my dad started with a trio, and in Hermosa Beach. And when he came to this country in 1919 from Mexico, fleeing the revolution.
Right.
Anyhow, after he had served with Venustiano Carranza, there's a whole little thing there that we'll have to get into sometime. But anyhow, he was in Los Angeles, and he and my mother were singing in early morning radio shows, and there were some Mexican nationals that set up business in Los Angeles. And since my parents were pretty popular around the Los Angeles area, because my mom and dad sang in programs like Ramon Arnaiz and El Despertador de Tony Sain. And by the way, they never did get to work with Pedro J. González of Los Madrugadores. They never worked with them. But so naturally, it followed that some of these people invited my parents to record for them. And because RCA Victor, Columbia Records, and Azteca Records, recognizing the growing Hispanic market, Latino market in Los Angeles.
This would be around 1935,
It was
36?
1936, 37, and my parents began to record in 1939, because my mom said she was carrying me, pregnant with me, when she recorded with El Mariachi, with my mom and dad recorded with El Mariachi Vargas. And remember that great trumpeter, Rafael Mendez?
Yes.
He, before they had El Mariachi Vargas, they already been recording, and Rafael Mendez was playing trumpet on some of their recordings.
Whose recordings?
My parents, the Los Moreno recordings. And I have some of those records. And 78 RPMs, which means revolutions per minute.
We'll have to check those out.
Oh, yeah, okay. And you can hear Rafael Mendez all over the place, all over the place with his trumpet. He was a maestro,
Well,
yes,
yeah, I knew him personally, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
I remember meeting him.
Well, I didn't know him, but I met him personally. We don't want to get into that, but I did know.
Okay.
I did meet him a couple of times.
You can relate, so.
In the 50s, yeah.
Well, anyhow, he recorded with a mariachi. Anyhow, so my parents were pioneers in the Mexican recording industry during the late 30s and 40s in Los Angeles.
And of course, when they came up here to, when did they move to Fresno?
Oh boy, they came up to the thing is they came up to Fresno in 1950, 51, and we didn't land straight in Fresno. My mother took sick. My mother said, my mother said it was because the doctor had ordered her to go to a drier climate. Actually, my father was getting pretty popular in Los Angeles, and there were a bunch of women after him.
Well, he was a good-looking man.
Oh, he was. He was.
I mean,
and
when
so
he was young,
all of a sudden, my mother took ill, and had
well, she was very pretty herself.
oh,
though,
she
I
was
mean.
pretty, but you know how women are. They, I don't know. I do know, but you know, anyhow, neither here nor there. But the fact is that I've been.
But when they came here, they
daddy.
continued to.
Oh yeah. Oh well, when they came here, they continued. See, they had toured and had met a lot of the people in the Central Valley. Juan Mercado. Do you know who Juan Mercado is?
I remember the name.
He was one of the first promoters, Hispanic promoters here in the Valley.
Yes, I remember people have talked about him.
Yeah, and so when they came up here, naturally, they were looking for gigs, and so they got in touch with Juan Mercado, and Juan Mercado, through radio station KGST AM, and Lalo Mendoza, his announcer, so they had them eventually ended up singing on Sundays at El Jardín Canales, there where Pancho Villescar. So they sang there for about 2, 3, 4 years. And they went on tour.
Where was that located?
On F Street.
On F?
It became Las Palmas.
Oh, el Jardín de Verano Las Palmas. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it became Las Palmas.
Yes, I actually played there myself.
Yeah.
With Beto Garcia.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. And anyhow, so they came up.
But I want to follow up on that a little bit.
Okay.
When did they start performing with Luis Gomez? Because they were regulars on that show.
Well,
the Luis Gomez show, of course, was a TV program, right, in the 1950s
in Fresno,
and 60s?
the 1960s. In the 1960s, it turned out that when I sang, I started singing with them when I was 11 years old, around 1951, 52, a little bit. And I started playing guitar, learning from my parents a basic position,
Right.
blah, da, 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 da. And then I got married, and well, actually, I went to Four Seas College, Business College, because my father thought he not only encouraged me to sing and play guitar, but he encouraged me to get a second career, just in case.
Well, that was smart of
singing.
him to-
Oh, it was. I think he was a great believer in education and in training. So were my mother. So anyhow, I got married, and then I left, and I left with my husband.
Where did you go?
He was running from the FBI. No, he was. We went to. Actually, we went to 27 states. We went up to Seattle, and then to Chicago, and all that. Well, and then I was singing, and I love the fact
Did
that
you continue singing when you were?
I love the fact that I am a skilled musician in the Mexican traditional folk music, because there are taco joints all over the world, and
Yeah.
I can just go to any one of those places and
Take out your guitar and start strumming.
well, not just like that, but I could talk to them and audition, and
Right.
they respect me because I am very good.
I agree with you completely.
I'm a very good musician.
Why do you
and
think you
singer.
won the Best Lomax Hawes Award?
I mean, I don't mean to sound immodest. Forgive me.
I'm sorry, we
but
have
in
to
a
keep
very
this kind of
competent-
focused,
okay.
so if I pull you back, forgive me.
Oh, do
But
pull me back.
Were you singing while you were gone?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what point I was trying to make.
Okay.
I sang in Seattle and I sang in Canada and sang all over Canada, well, a few places in Western Canada. And then we went east, and I wherever there was a place where, you know, Mexican food was sold, they were hungry for Mexican entertainers. So anyhow,
When did you
when
come
I
back
came,
to
okay,
Fresno?
okay, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Okay. I got back in about 63, 64. And then I saw the Luis Gomez show. And I go, hey, there's a good. So I went, I made an appointment and spoke to Luis Gomez. And then when I told him that I was the daughter of El Dueto de los Moreno, I could see the light behind his eyes go zing.
They were already performing there?
No.
They were not?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I immodestly, again, it was an honor for me to be instrumental to get my parents to sing there. And gosh, they made his show golden because he, you know.
Well, they became regulars pretty much, didn't
Oh,
they?
of course, they became regulars. He, you know, he was very impressed with them because who else had the class that my parents had? El Dueto de los Morenos, you know, they were experienced. And anyhow, bottom line is that they started in '62 to make a long story longer. Too late.
So you said you got your start singing when you were about 11 with them. You
11,
were singing
12,
with them?
with my mother and father.
And that was after they moved here from Southern California?
Oh, yeah.
And where were you people performing at the time here in Fresno?
Here in Fresno?
You said Jardín
Jardín Canales.
You were singing there yourself? Okay.
And then afterwards we would perform at any place, you know, market inaugurations, shoe store openings, wherever Juan Mercado would book, you know, they would do remote control radio shows from there. And then when that wasn't available, we were singing in like little Mexican, I call them cantinas, but they were restaurants. I think they're just, you know, they were cantinitas.
You know, if the National Heritage Award had been available, or perhaps it was, I think your parents would have been perfect candidates for that.
Oh, yes. Oh,
it's unfortunate they never had the opportunity to be nominated and elected to be
there
one of
was
those.
no such thing when they were younger, and I wasn't active in it, and it just like I lament that and some medical discoveries that have, because the medical problems my parents had and that they died of, now they have.
Did your mother have dementia at the end, or?
No, she was a little forgetful.
Yeah.
But what happened was that she had a massive stroke.
Oh.
And she was paralyzed all the right side. My dad passed away in 74. And let me tell you, in the Gilroy Hispanic Festival, there a few years ago, I did the first year myself. I went there about 3 or 4 years, and then I invited my mother to go. You want to go with me, Mom? And that was like in the early '80s, and she went with me. You're not gonna believe it. She upstaged me, and she was on a scooter. They had to lift the scooter up on stage, but as soon as she got up there with her guitar, people went wild. And when I would
That's
sing,
what happened in Jean Bluestein's class when she started singing, man. And she was already, I think, couldn't walk very well.
No,
this was,
she had, bless her heart, bless my mom's heart. Rest in peace, Mama. But anyhow, she was a real McCoy. She was a real thing. And people
would very charming.
Yes, she was. She had angel. She would sing fine. And then I would bust a gut and bust a string, blah, 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 blah. And then I stop. the crickets, just like that cartoon. Anyhow, she had angel, and I hope that now that I'm this age, that I've at least inherited a little angel, because
Believe me,
boy, it's
you
been
did.
a tough stuff.
You're a well, I don't say a carbon copy, but you're just like your mother.
Oh.
You might look a little bit like your father, but your character is much more like your mother's.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Speaking of whom, let's show this to the camera. This is when they were young.
And this is
over here.
Yeah.
If the camera can focus in on this photo, these are the El Dueto los Moreno, Luis and Carmen. I'm sorry. Yeah, Luis Moreno and Carmen Moreno.
Where am I? Oh, this is.
If no panel. Oh, here's another one. Let me put.
Hold it down a little bit so it doesn't shine. Hold it down a little bit like this.
Well, I don't know.
Just a little bit, like the angle down.
They have a way. Here they are performing with their guitars.
Angle it down a little so it doesn't catch the lights. There you go. See? Do this. My mommy. Oh, my mommy and my daddy. Oh, they were superb.
We've talked about them, and I knew your parents. As you might remember, I used to go to your house when your father wrote music, because he didn't write music himself. He was a folk musician, and at the time I was a music major. So I would come to your house and I would transcribe the songs for him, and then he would send them to be copyrighted.
You are the one that my father confided after all these years that he is the one to have written Cuatro Vidas.
Yes, he told me about that.
The way that worked is that they used to take
A very popular song, Cuatro Vidas.
Yes.
Yeah, recorded by many people.
Cuatro vidas, si tuviera cuatro vidas serían para ti.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, that their practice, it was a paperless world then when my parents were in Los Angeles in the early 40s and late 30s. My father would take in a bunch of songs, 3 or 4 or 5 songs, and then these guys, either Manuel Acuña, Felipe Valdés Leal, and Peláez, would look at them and they would say, we saying, okay, we'll take these 2 songs and we will own them and claim them, and you take these 3, 4, and we'll pay for the studio time and the musicians for you to record them and release them. And that's the way my dad lost control of Cuatro Vidas. And I stand here on record the way, because that's Manuel S. Acuña, in the last days of his life, bless and rest in peace and bless his heart, he gave those songs he had taken from my father, he gave them back to us in our catalog. So I have those songs waiting to be able to promote them.
Manuel S. Acuña, of course, is a very famous record producer in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Also, was he a composer?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He wrote Angelina, Angel Mío. I'll never forget.
All I know is that he was a very famous, very influential.
Yes, he was.
Promoter of Mexican music and a record producer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was.
And your parents worked with him, for some time.
Yes, I met him
Yep.
several times. He was a gentleman.
I want to switch gears a little bit here. I want to talk about, you mentioned Sangre Antigua,
Yes.
that it won the OTI in
1976.
That song was included in an album that was, what was it called?
Sí se puede.
That was kind of like a tribute to Cesar Chavez. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yes. Herb Alpert from A&M Studios donated studio time and materials to put out a fundraiser album for the United Farm Workers Union. And Art Brambilla who was an active Latino in Los Angeles and in Hollywood. Yes, and they contacted him to put it together, to produce it. So Art got Los Lobos, and he got a couple of other acts, and he contacted me. I had just returned from the OTI with my song that I had written called Sangre Antigua, and he said, he invited all these artists to come and present these songs, and he invited Cesar Chavez to be there as they auditioned all these songs. Well, my song became Cesar Chavez's favorite song, makes me want to cry, favorite song that he loved. And for many years, they used to play it as a background in Radio Campesina when they would play some of Cesar Chavez's speeches, which is called ¿Dónde está ese indio que en tiempo antiguo existió, que por todas las Américas su herencia nos dejó? It says, where is that Indian that existed for many years, that throughout the Americas left its evidence for us? And on and on. And then it goes on to say that that Indian isn't dead because his blood courses through my veins. That's the gist of the song.
When did that album come out?
In 78.
So obviously, this was a time when the farm worker movement was still strong.
Yes.
It was a time when the whole Chicano movement was still. How were you influenced by that? What motivated you to compose that song?
I was motivated by the fact that I had already performed in several colleges, and I had seen the enthusiasm, and it was like a breath of fresh air for a lot of Hispanic students to have something that they could call their own. I say they for the students, but actually I'm the one that benefited too, because having come from a background of Mexican traditional music and trying to break into mainstream Hollywood, I found resistance, terrifically hard resistance, in that I had no place to stand. I wasn't a Vicky Carr, whose real name is Victoria Cardona,
Right.
and she was white, light-skinned, and would dye her hair blonde. She could pass. I wasn't like Linda Ronstadt, who didn't even admit her father was Mexican, but who had a German last name of Ronstadt and all that. And Jose Feliciano was the only one but he was New York. He was a Caribbean, a Hispanic. He wasn't Mexican Southwest, which is a whole.
You think there was discrimination?
Duh.
I mean, I have to ask you the question.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, it was paraphrased when Clint Eastwood spoke at the RNC, the Republican Convention, and he says, oh, you know, you're all thinking that in Hollywood there are a bunch of liberals. Well, believe me, the conservatives are right there and we're strong. And I go, you doggone right they are, because I bucked up against them. I had a manager, and William Morris at one time with my agents, I had a manager who said, I wish you had never heard the word indigenous. He told me that. And
what did he mean by that?
well, it's because after I didn't want to work with him anymore, I guess he was bitter over the fact that I had chosen to go into the movimiento with my music. It was a market he did not understand and he did not approve of. Bless his heart, you know. He was only dealing from the world that he knew. But this was a new world for me. This was, at last, this was something I could relate to. The Mexican American in its fullest sense of the word. You know, the Mexicans are here trying to learn the American way of life for the good Americans, because they're not, you know, yeah, well, they're all this, which leads to all people are the same. There's good and bad in every culture. So anyhow, that was, So
was it a process for you of self-discovery?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it inspired me to go forward and explore this wonderful, comfortable world, because I was born and raised in the United States. I love the government. I love the American culture, the white American that is good. I love that part. Now, notwithstanding the history of how we got here, Manifest Destiny, that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, where Mexico lost, and the Texas became, and all those very tragic facts of history, okay? Notwithstanding that, that was then, this is now, here's where I am, I hold no grudges. I've gone to Mexico several times, not only to visit, but to perform. I was one of the few invitees to go to the Nacional Autónoma Escuela, you know, the University UNAM,
yeah.
Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México.
De Mexico.
Yeah, right.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is.
Even for us Spanish speakers.
Yeah, it is. And I was one of the, when they had that, called the first and probably last Chicano Symposium, that Mexico wanted to find out what the heck was going on with the quote, brown movement. What, a bunch of separatists? Is this ETA all over again? Or is this the French, you know, separatists and all that? They found out that we're a bunch of disunited, disjointed, independent, you know, Hispanics, and the only thing tying us together is the fact that we live in this wonderful country. But bottom line is that it is a place where we can be free, and I love that.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
There was your parents. Let me ask you this: did they ever tell you or confide or that they had ever experienced discrimination themselves?
Yeah.
Well, give me a little more on that.
A little more. A
if
few?
you can. No, of what they told you.
Oh. A million little things.
Yeah.
A million little things. You know how it is. A million little things, but they never told me not to go in there. They never told me not to. My father wanted us to be educated. You know, my mother, they stressed education. And they were aware and knew full well that education means our communicative skills are in English, yours and mine, all right?
Bueno, pero hablamos español también, ¿no?
Oh, we're bilingual, absolutely. ¿Cómo no?
Nunca abandonamos nuestra cultura mexicana totalmente.
No, because it's like, hey, it's too late to push back guacamole.
Well, someone in one of my
burritos.
one of my interviews some years ago with some musicians in Texas told me that you can take the Chicano out of the barrio, but you can't take the barrio out of the Chicano.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Well,
you know?
I mean,
Yeah,
he was kind of
I
just
know,
being facetious, but
I know, it's like that.
there's some
hetero
truth
thing.
to that. I mean, I think the barrio still exists somewhere inside this heart of mine, you know?
It's all tribalism.
Well, yeah.
It's all tribalism, you know. Look at the Irish. You can take, you know, I was going to do a program here with one of the Irish, last name of Hall, I can't remember. But I was going to do because the Irish, a lot of the Irish music has the same, you know, that wapangos have.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I pulled down some music and showed them. I couldn't do it this year because I had a family emergency I had to take care of, but the program at the Memorial went on with, at the Memorial Auditorium went on without me. But the fact is, we're all connected in this world. In fact, I just heard a classical piece with a flute there on KVPR that had something, and I go, oh my goodness, that sounds like a wapango, huasteco, you know, with a, you know, oh, come on, you know, you can't deny, there are some things you cannot deny. We're part of the global music community.
Before we get into something a little different, we have only about 20 minutes left. You were mentioning earlier about breaking into mainstream Hollywood. Do you think, and I think you mentioned something about that Morris did not approve of you getting into this, Chicanismo stuff.
It wasn't Morris. It was my manager.
Your manager. Okay,
manager.
I'm sorry. Do you think that you're being a true mestiza as opposed to Ronstadt and?
They're mestizas too.
I know, but they're some blancas.
Yeah, they're white. No, wait a minute. Mestizas doesn't necessarily mean.
No. What I meant to say is that you're not exactly, no tienes ojos azules.
That I'm not a light-skinned, blue-eyed mestiza.
That might have had something to do with.
Well, the fact is, they wanted
breaking into the mainstream, as it were.
No, because they wanted to make me a Buffy St. Marie. You know.
Okay.
Hey, you can't. Hey, I'm not from Maine. I'm not an Indian tribe. This is a whole new thing. I'm a quote Chicana. I'm a mestiza and all this. This is a brand new brand. We're la raza cósmica. I call us people the dawn, the aurora, the people of the aurora, the people of the dawn, because the light, the dawn, the sun is coming up on human race and showing, hey. The melding of different cultures is going on not only here, but all over the world.
That's true.
All over the world, in Serbia, in Croatia, and all those places. And it's just learning to live with each other. And that's what it is. We're the people of the dawn. And yes, it had a lot to do with it because I could not, let me tell you, for 2 weeks, Arnie Mills, Vicky Carr's manager, was going to be my manager, right? And for 2 weeks, and then, oh my God, and then I better stop touching it. And then he wanted me to sing at a Lakers game, but I was married to an Englishman who was here on vacation when he met me, and of course,
Was this the same man that took you all over?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And so he decided, what am I going to sing the national anthem at a Lakers game? It's not good enough for me. And he told that to Arnie Mills. Of course, Arnie Mills then called me a couple of days later and he says, I can't manage you anymore because I don't want to manage an artist that I have to go through her husband to do. And so, he says, besides, I can't find of a name to give to you. He's going to change my name. He had done that to a male artist that he had, one of the male artists, Andy Russell or somebody, right, something like that, and Vicky Carr. done that to Vicky Carr, and he wanted to put me in the same mold. So these guys have a mindset of what they're going to, you know, cookie cutter thing they've done. If it works for one, it's going to work for all of them. And hey, guess what? You know, what are you, you know, what are you going to name a fire-breathing dragon? you know, it just, no. So anyhow, so the people, Hollywood mainstream was not, and it was not prepared. And the few Hollywood parts that I did get were very negative, stereotypical parts that I felt uncomfortable doing, and so I wasn't very good at them. I wasn't happy. One of the parts I had was with Robert Culp and Bill Cosby in a movie called Hickey and Boggs, and I had a good substantial part, but they couldn't find a Chicano tall enough to be my husband. And I said, well, I have a brother that's taller than me. So they got my brother to play my husband. I could not, like, ew, that's my brother. I can't do that. So naturally, I'm as stiff as a piece of wood in that. And then the other part I had was with Jack Laughlin. Oh, Tom Laughlin. Billy Jack, you know, that guy. And I had a part, there was a singer in a carnival barefoot, you know, with a thing, and I'm playing guitar, and the bad guys come and shoot the frets off my guitar, you know. And I'm thinking, you know what? I don't want to do this. So I kind of just like started, and you know.
Well, that reminds me, how many, because you went through several sort of stages, you know, starting as a little girl singing, then on the Luis Gomez show,
Metamorphosis,
which is where I met you, and then I guess you got married. But you spent some time in Palm Springs. Were you already?
I was there. Yes, I was there for 11 years. Oh yeah, I was single.
How many years were you there, and what were you doing there?
11 years. I went to because of my work in 1983, because of my work with Cesar Chavez and the UFW. They held a fundraiser in Bakersfield. Anyhow, Lalo was there. Lalo Guerrero was there, and he says, and he heard me again, and he goes, "Hey," he says, "I want to." He
was in Palm Springs at the time.
Yes, he had been in Palm Springs and Rancho Mirage at Las Cazuelas and Rancho Mirage. What a beautiful place. Anyhow, I was there, and they, Lalo says, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to sub for me for 3 months because I want to take a vacation." And he figured, "Oh, we'll get this girl, you know, we'll get this woman to go do it." So I went down there in August to audition, and and I got the gig.
So you performed at the same place all the time?
Oh yeah, I performed at Las Cazuelas, and then after Lalo came back, of course, honor bound, I gave him his job back. You know, it wasn't even a question of not giving it to him back. But they did get me as a sub for 1 or 2 days that Lalo didn't want to work, and then I found work, like I said, I worked in every taco joint at the Coachella Valley. You know.
When did you come back to Fresno?
In 93.
93?
Yes, in 1993.
And you have been here since then?
Yes, I have here.
But you've continued, obviously, your career.
Well, that's what I do. I sing. I have a skill, and when I tried to work in a couple of Mexican restaurants, which were, this is Fresno. No wonder. Anyhow, but Amy Kitchener from the ACTA, at that time she was working for the Fresno Arts Council, and she's now working for the Alliance for California Traditional Artists. And Amy's the one who turned me on to. She says, you know, you could get a job teaching guitar in prisons if you want to do that.
That's right. You did that for a while.
I go, okay. No, anyhow, no, through the California Arts Council, I did. It wasn't bad. The convicts, yeah, the guests,
the prisoners.
Yeah.
Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, you know, they don't want to mess up the program, and they well behaved. You have to go there, and one has to go through the clearance and all that process. And I did. I taught guitar in prisons, folk guitar, for 3 years. You know, in several prisons in California.
I remember that. I had forgotten about that, but yes, you continued making recordings. How many recordings have you made?
On my own? Well, the first one
from the very first one, just really quickly, just come give me a list.
Oh, well,
in addition to that, well,
I did some singles for for actually Ray Camacho paid for one of my recordings, and then my biggest one was for Epic Records, and there's my version of Dion's Abraham Martin and John, which I'm trying to get it so I can load it up to the YouTube because there are about 4 or 5 renditions. But I love my rendition. When I recorded that on Epic Records, it got a lot of airplay with Wink Martindale and everything in Los Angeles, but they didn't promote it as much because of the Hispanic thing, you know, again. But that's okay. Anyhow, then I did. Oh, this is fun. I was communicated by a music producer, Dan Dalton, and he wanted help because Fernando Valenzuela was, you know, so I wrote the Spanish lyrics to Fernando Valenzuela, da 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 da, Fernando Valenzuela, to the tune of La Bamba. You know?
Right.
Oh, I stooped. To what depths I have stooped.
Well, I mean,
no, but anyhow. So, and then afterwards, I did, you know, when the hooked on disco type of thing, I recorded for Boardwalk Records, and I did Hooked on Latin, which is a lot of solamente una vez,
okay.
dun 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 in disco. Donna Summers had nothing to worry about. So anyhow, from then on, I did. And let me see what else. I had forgotten a couple of places that I recorded, but not finding a niche in Hollywood and still raising my sons with the music and doing this and doing that and making a career choices. And then my mother got sick, and my precious beloved mother.
When did she die?
Pardon?
When did she die?
In '96.
Okay.
I came up in '90, and then I came up in
you said '93?
80. I came up in '83 because she had had a leg amputated.
Right.
And I came up to take care of her. And when she was well, and then Lalo's call came in for me to audition. She says, "That's your income. You should go." And I go, "Right, Mom. You know, I'm out of here. You know." And then 10 years later, when she was sick again, she had her second leg amputated. She was 83, and she had a pacemaker. Not good at all, not good. So I came up, and then a year and a half later, she got that massive stroke, and I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave her. I have 2 younger sisters. One is in El Paso, Texas, and the other sister is dealing with a life of her own. She was working. She's, you know, and I'm the only vagabond. I was the only gypsy. And I go, "Me vale. Let's go, Mom. I'll stay here and take, you know, and do the thing." So I took care of my mom for a year and a half, and it was my honor. I wrote a song behind that called Payback Love, and it's called "Nobody Cares About a Dying Old Lady. It's so hard to bear. Nobody cares that she was someone's baby that was in her yesterdays. And all her babies now have grown and flown, and most have babies of their own. And daily worries can make one forget the old lady's dying all alone. But payback love can be a bitch, I tell you, when you've got your own living to do. But heartstrings are stronger than iron will, so here I am. I love her, yes, I do. Anyhow.
It's beautiful. Is that recorded somewhere?
Yes, it's in my first CD that it took me 10 years to sell 1,000 CDs. Hey, I don't promote myself, and I don't promote the whole thing. It's another CD I didn't bring you. It's called Train from Tenochtitlan.
Well, I've heard this one, the last one you've done, Songs of the Mexican Revolution, and I enjoyed it very much.
One of the best ones.
So you still have a lot of life in that heart of yours.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot of music in me that I want to get out. One of the songs that I'm really very proud of is the Battle of Cinco de Mayo. It's a 7-minute song, and you start listening to it. I've sung it in places, and all of a sudden the room grows quiet because it is a compelling song. I'm telling you, I love this song. the Battle of Cinco de Mayo. And I also did America the Beautiful. Que bella es America.
In Spanish.
O tierra sin igual. Of course, you know, oh well, good luck to all of us on that. And one of the funds that I really love is called Amor is Love. And I took all these songs that had, most of the songs that had 12 songs.
I have that CD.
Songs that had been famous in the mainstream America, which is in the United States, the United States of America, because there's also the United States of Mexico.
That's right.
Okay, and it's got like those cool and limpid green eyes, those eyes, and it's got Maria Elena, you're the answer, and it's got Be Mine Tonight. Oh, the one that I sung, Be Mine Tonight, Noche de Ronda. That's,
Noche de Ronda.
That's one of my best songs. In 2004, when I sung with a Philharmonic.
Sing a little bit of it before.
Okay.
We got about a minute left.
Okay. Luna que se quiebra sobre las tinieblas de mi soledad. ¿A dónde vas? Dime si esta noche tú te vas de ronda como ella se fue. ¿Con quién está? Dile que la quiero, dile que me muero de tanto esperar. Que vuelva ya. Que las rondas no son buenas, que hacen daño, que dan penas y que acaban por llorar. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me here.
Well,
darling.
I think we had a good time, and you have been very, very informative. I'm sure that we'll find a lot of very beautiful and useful information from this interview. Thank you, Carmencristina.
It was my pleasure.
My pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, old friend.
Yes.